Hello, everyone. My name is James Vamboi, Chief of Staff of Community and Culture here with the Boston Ujima Project. This week, with Ujima Wednesdays, we're engaging in reflection and discussion with our member teams, specifically doing some peer learning. And we have representatives from our time bank team and our study member teams who will give us insight into their 2021 wins, challenges, and lessons. We'll have space for questions about cooperative work and processes afterwards. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to save them to the end. But the first half of this workshop, we're gonna hear from time bank folks, and then after that, we'd love to hear from study team. And again, wins, losses, challenges, lessons, things that you guys have done this year that helped move the work, helped structure the work better. We'd love to hear about this. And we did this last year, and it was incredibly helpful in offering different member teams different tools and different ways of organizing together. This work looks, depending on what member team you're in, it can look very different. So getting some insight from each other can be really helpful in moving the work forward. So I'm going to pass it to Troy, I believe, who was speaking to our time bank in the last year. So thank you, Troy. I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, James. Yeah, so I can speak on where the time bank member team is at. I mean, I'll just say to start off, I maybe joined one earlier in the year, but I didn't really get into the flow of things till about halfway through the year / closer to the fall. So I've been on for the past few, and I can get into it more detail later, but we did have some membership getting people to show up a little bit of challenges. So last month we didn't even hold a member team meeting just because we've been struggling with attendance and busy time of the year. But definitely a big win would be rebranding, and that was kind of led from the staff, if I'm not wrong, and rebranding it to call it Cousins to make it more, I guess, approachable, familiar kind of name, and kind of get that community helping each other out kind of mindset going. So that was a win. There's been a regular stream of new members joining. So, as different events occur, the time bank will be mentioned, and, each newsletter, I'm sure people see there's some promotion for it. So that's been good to see, a steady stream of folks who are signing up to be a part of it. And I'm kind of the time bank coordinator right now as well. So I onboard new members and just kind of give them the hours and stuff like that. Another win was a few meetings ago, we were able to, connect with someone from Chicago area, and the group is called the Nut Collaborative, and they're another time bank kind of ecosystem. And we spoke with Mike, came and joined one of our member team meetings and kind of explained what the Nut Collaborative processes are, and kind of some of their challenges and some of their wins. Yeah, Paige just dropped the link there to nutcollab.org. And something that we were pretty excited about was an offers and needs assessment, or not even an offers and needs kind of marketplace, where it's these events that Mike and the group have hosted, and it's been a really good way to kind of explain, or kind of he used it as you have a more visceral experience with kind of the concept of time banking, when basically folks are saying, okay, everyone here at this table, everyone here at this event has something to offer, and everyone has certain needs, and let's sit and reflect a little bit about what our different offers are that we could present to the community, and what our different needs are. And just going through that process is something that people start to really feel oh, I do have something to offer, a little bit empowered through that process. And you can see it right here in action of like, okay, we had a successful kind of exchange of offers and needs. Now, when we're not in the same room, how can we then do that while we're all living our lives? And that's where like the time bank platform comes into play. So anyway, a long-winded way of saying that was something that we were pretty excited about, and we want to try to, host something like that going forward in, this upcoming year. And that could be something really exciting. That kind of gets into some of the challenges, which has definitely been like in person. I'm sure a lot of groups are feeling that, but like in person, it's been difficult because of COVID, and something like this, it feels like it could be really beneficial for people to just get to know each other, get to know what what they're looking for out of community members and what they have to offer, what different skills and personalities, and just access to different tools and different kind of community kind of referrals they may be able to offer. So that's definitely been a big challenge, but hopefully we'll be able to kind of do some kind of workshop and get people like, a little bit more excited about that. Another challenge has been recording exchanges. So I think there is a lot kind of going on behind the scenes, but not necessarily being recorded in the time bank platform, and which is fine. But I think there is a lot of value with having this platform, and you could get exposed to someone who you really don't even know and has something they can offer that you may need, and and it kind of just getting in that framework. Maybe that's something that the time bank member team has been kind of, sorry, I'm saying time banking a lot, but Cousins has been kind of trying to think about what barriers are there and what would make it as little kind of friction as possible, so that folks can easily enter these hours. And maybe that means like the time banking coordinator is the one who's actually recording these hours, and folks are just kind of sending that along. But kind of just trying to think about how we can make sure that the different things going on, and there are some really strong ties in the community, just to make sure that's kind of being connected in at least some way to the time bank platform. And then definitely a challenge I want to mention and would be interested in feedback on from the other groups is just member team attendance and member team kind of recruitment, I guess, as well. But I'm not sure exactly what the thinking is around why folks aren't coming to the meetings, but that has been a struggle lately of getting kind of consistent, strong turnout. So just trying to think about what would make it more attractive, and are people maybe not necessarily seeing the value in this, but if it was presented in a different way, would they start to understand it? And I guess like that also gets to the kind of main lesson of what I was thinking in reflection of like the mutual aid kind of marketplace and the mutual aid boom of during the past few years has shown that this can be done well, and mutual aid is not synonymous with time banking, but there is the subsection of mutual aid that really does overlap with time banking a lot. And so that was a lot of the times done through like Facebook or different social media platforms. I think like with Google and Google Drive Sheets and all that, it might be a little bit more kind of logistical kind of time being put into that, but that's been a pretty successful model in a lot of ways. So I think it's just like a lesson of mutual aid has been crucial during COVID, and for a long time mutual aid has played a role in communities who know each other and rely on each other in a lot of great ways. And so how do we kind of get that energy going in the direction of time banking with Cousins, if that's something we want to try to work on? So that's definitely a big lesson. Would it be good to, I guess I'll ask James because your camera's on, would it be good to get into some like questions now? And I'm not sure exactly who I'm even directing them at.
Good question. Actually, it might make sense to do. Paige, what are your thoughts? Should we do questions at the end or like after each go?
Why don't we just do questions for Troy now? Maybe
Yeah.
10 or so minutes, and we can go on to such study team next.
I also like have a few questions that I could like ask out. I kind of like have glossed over them also, but I have some that I could like ask the group too. Okay, I see a thumbs up. Okay. I guess I can start with that, and then people can either answer if they have ideas or ask questions back at me, if that works. So tips for more members, open to ideas on that. I don't know how successful some of the other, I don't even know the size, I guess, of all the other member teams, but would be looking for more information on that. What, just kind of a general question of like, what's been a key driver in some of the successes? I'm interested in what some of the other groups' successes are. And, you know, like what has kind of led to that in your opinion? What would make like time banking as a concept maybe more appealing to, not kind of, I mean, one, like, you know, what would we make it more appealing for the community? But like I said, like, I think there's a lot of people who are doing this, and I think they, you know, understand it, but I guess from a member team, you know, trying to get like the people in the Ujima network who are, you know, members, either like voting members, but also just like solidarity members, you know, maybe just trying to think about ways that the concept of time making appeals to them, so they like want to participate and help out. And then I guess, I don't know, I just have a note here that just says white members, but I guess mine is just like, you know, I don't want it to just be like, you know, I'm a white male, and I think a lot of the community members that we want using the platform are community members of color. So I want to just make sure it's well represented on the time making team, making sure that we have all different voices and perspectives on the time making, you know, the Cousins member team if possible. So there's some questions, less thoughts, and happy to answer any questions if people have any.
Troy, I think I have some answers to your questions, but also a question myself. I have not yet participated in the time bank, and I just keep forgetting that it's a resource that I have, and that exists. And so I'm curious if it would be helpful to do, like, I know that Ujima will promote it through its weekly emails, but I wonder if there's another funding stream or another stream that will almost like highlight, like, hey, we just had this new offer come in. Like I saw one for someone working on design work and presentations. And that felt really helpful to see something direct, almost like a call to action of someone just offered this, do you need it? So maybe something like that. And then my question for you is, what type of services do you feel like people are using the most through the time banking system?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I think they're, you know, through the newsletter that's already kind of taking place with the offers, but I do think that kind of is like a, I don't know newsletter marketing terms, but like kind of like a call to action where it's like, you know, like, hey, can someone help with this specific task? And then I think maybe someone will answer it, and that'll kind of just kind of snowball in some ways. So I think that's, you know, a good idea that we can definitely continue to try to promote if possible. And then, yeah, I don't know, I'm recently that became the time banking coordinator just in like December, or like the, you know, the volunteer time banking coordinator. So I'm not sure what that is. Paige, if you have any more info, feel free to kind of jump in on that one, because I know Paige has been involved too, but I know there's like, at least from what I've seen, there's a good amount of like help with like resumes and help with like computers. And so I think like, you know, job opportunity, like, you know, employment development, that's definitely something that a lot of folks would benefit from. And then kind of on that similar note, there's some like kind of language, and, you know, I guess education adjacent type of offers that seem to be posted a fair amount. If folks have any other questions, feel free to ask, but if not, I can pass it along.
Troy, I have a question. Like, how do you guys go about collaborating in between meetings and offline? Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, nothing super formal, just kind of, you know, emailing a couple, you know, once or twice throughout the month for certain asks. And then, you know, when I was doing the time banking, learning how to run the kind of the system or onboard people. Like I just had a call with the person who was doing it prior. But yeah, I mean, I think honestly, a lot of it can be done through the platform, which is kind of nice. But because it hasn't been like the most robust member team in full transparency, there hasn't been a ton of kind of organizing outside of the meetings. Right now, like the monthly meeting is enough time and enough space to kind of discuss what we want to do. And then, like I was mentioning, we had like Cola Nut Collaborative, another time banking kind of ecosystem in the Chicago area. We were just kind of reaching out to them through email and stuff like that.
This is maybe just out of my own ignorance, but is the time bank in any way like involved in the like Good Business Alliance or with the like businesses that are associated with Ujima, or are they like totally separate things?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Question, Eric. James, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I was gonna say that they are separate endeavors. However, members of the Good Business Alliance could leverage the time bank if they are in fact like part of the Business Alliance. But I wouldn't say that it's something that
do we have any data as to like whether they do leverage the time bank?
Yeah, it's a good question. Probably, I don't know. I don't know if we do. But I guess I'm just thinking of the two, but it wouldn't be hard to find. We only have 2 official Business Alliance members right now that are businesses. So yeah, we could figure that out.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea in general. I guess like it feels like there are certain small business, if you're thinking of it as far as like, the small businesses utilizing the kind of like labor market in some ways, or like, getting help for their business. It feels like there's a lot of resources out there for small businesses.
Yeah,
Which
that's kind of what I was thinking.
yeah, I think it could be really helpful, and I'm sure people would value that. But I guess the way that we've been talking about time banking a lot is like, just community member to community member, and each community member has a lot to offer, each community member has a lot of need, and how can we just kind of foster that and help promote those kind of connections.
Thank you so much, Troy, and everybody with all the questions.
Yeah, sure thing. I'll also Paige dropped a link. I'll just say Ujima Boston dot it just went away. Ujima Boston.timebanks.org if people want to check it out.
Dope. Thanks, Troy. Yeah, and just a quick little thing to add here. I know just on staff level, we've been talking about doing a time bank event in the coming months to really activate more attention, bring people focus into this, maybe a call to action for people to commit some hours to the bank. We're still figuring out exactly what that look like, but that is a desire. In addition to that, we are thinking, we have decided we're going to commit at least part-time, if not full-time, staff member to support the time bank. And so really getting serious and committed to this practice, of like recording exchanges in our community. So who is representing the study team today?
I think Atul and I are both here.
Oh, great. Okay. Well, I'm going to pass it to y'all to share a little bit about the study team.
Okay. We haven't really coordinated, so I don't know. I didn't really prepare much. Do you have stuff that you want to talk about, Atul? I'll let you go first.
Not particularly, Julian. You could go ahead.
Okay. Well, so this is going to be pretty short on my part, but the study team is new. So, I guess this was like the UNESCO team before, which was producing some type of reports, and that project kind of ended, and so then the study team was launched. And I think we've had like two, potentially two meetings, but and then the third one in December didn't actually end up happening because of a lack of attendance. So I guess I don't think it's just that. I don't think that it's just the time banking team. that's having trouble in that regard. But I guess like a win, I would say, was that the study team got launched at all, and that I think we had two like pretty good conversations. The first one was talking about land trusts, and we watched a couple different documentaries, and the second one was kind of continuing that focus on community land trusts, actually. And there was a number of people who showed up from the initial meeting, and I think there was quite a good and lively conversation about kind of community and housing and land in Boston. And then the December meeting didn't really happen, I think. I would say that the challenge is, it seems like, it's kind of like I don't expect anybody really to show up, like in addition to the people who have come right here, right now, to the study team like later tonight, right? So I think it's a kind of a challenge is that the attendance depends on basically who comes to the meeting beforehand, and we don't really have, we don't have like a core group of people that come every time. Atul and I have come a couple different times, but really, we don't know what we're doing either. And so I think kind of building up some sort of consistency is going to be the big challenge, and making a plan and then sticking to the plan, and then also kind of like trying to be democratic about the whole thing, because it's like difficult to come up with a consistent plan that kind of advances a program of study, especially with getting people's input month by month, if that like group of people is in flux all the time. And so I think really, yeah, like that challenge of consistency, and consistent participation. So that's basically all I have to say about it. But I'll turn it over to Atul, see maybe he has something to add here.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much covered everything, Julian. One thing I'd add to that is, the scope of, basically us getting together and collaborating and coordinating in between meetings. That's kind of been a challenge. We do have like, a group email, but there's often not a lot of engagement to, questions or, input. So that's kind of a challenge, getting people to coordinate in between meetings. And I guess that ties in with the problem of getting a consistent group of members. Yeah, that's pretty much what I'd add from my side. I think Julian did a pretty good job in summarizing the whole thing.
Yeah, I could even elaborate on what you just said a little bit more, Atul, is I think that goes along also with the problem of figuring out a program of study, or like maybe a methodology of study, because for like sometimes we're thinking, okay, like maybe one meeting we had talked about not like assigning work between the study sessions, and then so people would come, and then there would be kind of a discussion or study during the study session, right? So it'd be like an hour and a half of like group study. But then you kind of need a leader that actually puts in a lot of work beforehand to kind of like gather together all the materials. Unless you have somebody basically presenting materials, there's like a very limited amount of reading or discussion that you can do in an hour and a half if it's not based on some sort of materials that everybody's already looked at beforehand. But then if you have materials, if you have assignments, then it becomes a sort of more difficult thing where people have to take extra time outside of the study session. But on the other hand, if it's only once a month, which it is only once a month, you almost need people to spend a little bit of time outside in order to like get through much content, because we spent 2 months so far on community land trusts, and we've barely scratched the surface of that. And then like one final thing that I'll say that what you were saying like sparked in my mind, Atul, which is that I think it's also kind of, it's shaky, like if we want to focus more on like studying like Boston as like Boston neighborhoods, Boston history, and Boston, economic problems and things like that. Or if we're trying to study like models that of other cities, other places that could be like brought into Boston and used. So like community, like the history of community land trusts or the current practices of community land trusts elsewhere to bring into Boston and like spark ideas about like, what could be done here. So I think that's another maybe ambiguity more about like the program of study more than the methodology. But but if we can figure out all those things, then we'll be doing great. So that's some other considerations.
Thank you so much, Julian, Abdul. Any questions, reaction? I know you guys presented some thoughts around attendance and structure, which I appreciate. But any questions anyone have for them as it relates to the study team?
I have one. Have you guys thought about dividing up work in a way that feels achievable and kind of like a low lift for everyone, but kind of demands a little bit of like putting some skin in the game? And by that, I'm just thinking, okay, if it's every month, we switch off who's the leader of the session that month. So you only have to do it once every X months. And what that looks like could be very different. And they work to facilitate, or perhaps the first meeting of a particular topic like community land trust, if everyone comes with one article, and then just based on everyone's one article, you perhaps have your reading list, and they can be short, and depending on how you want to break them up and how you want to quote unquote assign them, it's at least like each person has already done one of the assignments because they found one of the things to respond to. Because I think you're right, you don't want to dissuade people from coming because they haven't done the work. But if this is going to be meaningful, it feels like people do actually need to study. So I'm curious if you feel like you've figured out a little bit of like what that balance might be.
I think we kind of, that is a challenge. And I think for two of the sessions, we kind of did a similar thing where like one person took the lead, sort of did some research beforehand, prepared a sort of reading list, but also, presented like a summary of his study, at the beginning of the session, so that there is material for people who haven't, for newcomers who haven't engaged with the group before, to sort of engage with. So one of the sessions we basically prepared a reading list beforehand and put it in the group documents. But then we also came in presenting a one-pager on the subject. And so after that presentation, whoever was there, we managed to have a conversation around it, which was relatively lively and, fruitful. So I think that's a nice way of, trying to strike a balance between those two things. And I think we should probably do more of that.
Yeah, Tool actually like led the November, I think, one, maybe it was the October one, but then we decided on a leader the next one, and then like then the next one didn't really happen in December. So it works. I think if you have the people to do it, but yeah, it's kind of like a chicken and an egg thing. But yeah, I think it is. In my opinion, I think that it's a good idea. What you were saying, Abby, is having somebody kind of having this like rotating like leadership, and then having people bring materials and stuff like that. I think that all sounds good.
I have a question too. I guess, kind of related to that of like, that creates some kind of barrier to entry a little bit in some ways of like folks might be, yeah, like intimidated. That's the concern. Like, so what has been like the average age? Has it been on like a spectrum? And is it usually English speakers or like folks with English as a second language? Like just to, encourage anyone who maybe is interested to join, that they feel like it is accessible for them to join. I don't know what you guys have thought through with that.
So I think from the previous session, so one thing that I think really helps get people, I mean, like I think makes it more welcoming is specifically mentioning that no prior study is required for this session. I think that helps because it certainly, I mean, if it was me, I would definitely be more, willing to participate. Uh, and regarding like who attends it, I think it's pretty much mostly English speakers, like people with English as a first language. I haven't, it's probably only me that, uh, I have English as my second language. So, but it's mostly English speakers and people from all, like the age range is like kind of all over the place. It's a wide range. So.
Yeah, we haven't really had like that many people or that many meetings. I think this is, again, I think we can think of this as like a pretty new team. So, so I guess like trying to figure out how to make it accessible to people of like different language backgrounds and different age ranges going forward is like probably more helpful than thinking about like who has showed up, because I think honestly I think the meeting where like a number of people showed up is because it was like announced by the in that like slideshow at the beginning of the Ujima meeting. That's like I don't think it was, I think that was the reason why it was like one meeting and then like the other meeting, like there wasn't anybody there. So I think that there's too few data points so far to like make any real conclusions about that.
Yeah, I was gonna also mention like, this is a newer team. So it's hard for us to like really give it it definitely doesn't have the full year that Time Bank had or other teams had. I think we started this September, October. So yeah, definitely so it's sort of still developing and defining itself. So definitely want to give it some grace, give this experience some grace, because I think starting it's been great. It's a shout out to and leading November's conversation, which I thought was good. I thought we had about 9 of 10 of us. It was a good amount of people there. And so I think we have some good first couple steps related on making that member team good.
James,
I guess, go ahead.
sorry, I was just gonna bring up another question if there's time.
Yeah, go for it.
I was just gonna ask, like, if you've been involved and, for everyone who's been a part of that, like you said, like 10 people for one of the meetings, like that's really good turnout. Like, what do you think for at least, relatives of maybe some of the other groups? Like, what do you think kind of like, what would you say is one of the main drivers? I mean, I think Julian was the one who said like, it was mentioned at the beginning, or do you think maybe because it's new? I'm curious.
Like what drives us to get like high membership for some of these groups?
Yeah, like I don't know, just getting 10 at a meeting is like, was that like a hard push to get a lot of people, or do you think people just kind of like were interested organically?
I think there was some, because I think for that meeting in particular, there was like a good runway to like announce it and let people know that it was
November
coming.
was real estate month.
Yeah. And similarly, like for example, our arts and cultural organizing member team, we have it's called a micro learning pod, and so there's like everyone. We have artists and cultural leaders facilitate 3 months at a time, and so there's like a heads up that people have on who's going to be facilitating and what we're going to be focusing on. And so I do feel like, and for folks who've been to that member team, they can tell you, I feel like that group generally has like between like 6 to 8 members always, generally, depending on the day. But and so yeah, I think that heads up and our ability to market it within the time, I think really helps. And in addition to that, I think like I'm just thinking a anchor team, and maybe Siona could speak more too, because Anchor has a pretty robust member team, and if not like 10 plus pretty consistently. Siona, would you speak to like why you think y'all? I mean, I know a lot of folks on Anchor have been there for a while, but why do you think the membership has been so consistently strong?
Hi. Yes. So I would say that there was a level of commitment by a group in particular, Kavod Fellowship, that had made a level of commitment within their organization. So they brought a lot of energy initially, but we also saw a bit of attrition, you know, kind of a bit of a shrinking in like maybe 2 stages over the course of like 3 years. So, but yeah, there certainly was a consistency even in the last 3 years. And it actually, what is it? It feels like every 6 months, the kind of core team, which is probably like about 5 to 8 of us, more recently, we have conversations. We revisit the same topic of how can we create a self-sustaining network of, you know, engaged people who may not always come to our monthly meetings, but and maybe not engage in the strategy. But so we are also feeling in some way that, you know, maybe our member team is struggling to actually enact some plan that we actually desire, which requires more than just the 5 to 8 core planning team members. And so 5 to 8 sounds like maybe a few more than what you guys are experiencing, but honestly, we're asking the same kinds of questions. Part of what we have been doing is thinking very thoughtfully, and we even had like a little like a retreat where the kind of anyone was invited, but primarily the core team. We spent some dedicated like 3 to 4 hours to come up with some plan to continue the work, and part of that came with like rotating roles, setting commitments to those roles, building a network of community members, and a lot of extra kind of in between rolling up your sleeves, like outreach, inreach, phone calls, things like that. Does that help?
Yeah, that's super, super helpful. Thanks, Siona. Appreciate that. And I see in the chat also, just wanna, and even think about what Siona said. Sierra mentioned Public Banking Month too, which, you know, we had a really, really high attendance for our workshops during that month. Even in our Arts and Cultural Advocacy Month, which is October, you know, we had a pretty strong, and I think Siona kind of speaks to this. I feel like another thing with these groups is it almost feels like they need to be partnered with like an external partner, like an external group, an external sort of like entity to help sort of activate attention outside of Ujima's like networks too. You know, because I'm just thinking about those months that we did, and so many of them were in partnership with other organizations, and just thinking about the come up that Anchor had with Kovu, just really committing to supporting this work. I think be interesting to see what other like community partners could partner with our member teams to like really drive it and sustain it outside of just us. So yeah, I know we have like 4 more minutes. I had a quick question though, like around, I don't know who said it. I do think that this question of like how to continue, how do things move forward, or how does the work move forward? How do people feel engaged when people are in and out of the organization, or like when people aren't always here? Like, what are the ways that we can like still keep things moving despite that? And that's the reality of just like any community organization, right? Like everyone has the same issue, and so it's not like unique to us. But it's kind of like, what are some systems in place that we can consider or think about? Like knowledge is that, you know, because life is it is what it is. And so I guess I just want to just like put that on the floor. Like, we're always going to have issues with people coming in and out. That's just nature of the work. And like, how can we still like be engaged and learn and connected despite that? So yeah, any other questions, thoughts before we pivot to member teams? Yes, here, you can ask a question.
I just mentioned from Anita in the chat, wanted to shout out in case anybody hadn't already. In the chat, Anita said, could there be some connection to creating quote unquote impact, at least with the study team? For example, what if one goal was would be to publish an article based on what was learned? Would that be motivation? And I think that, you know, with all of our member teams, Ujima strives to have everything kind of like member led. So if that was something that the member team decided that was interesting or worthwhile, then, you know, like go for it 100%. But I think that especially with the study team, rather like the study team, I think is unique because I think that we wanted to create a space where study would be with no kind of motive of study for study's sake and learning sake. So I think that it is worthwhile to have goals and to to have goals in certain spaces. I know it would be up to the B, you know, we need to also kind of take a step, think about that production be for, who is there, and feel the need to do it. I think that we would, you know, or I would at least like ask us those before we consider doing things to create an impact. Like, can we just do the thing and have fun and enjoy doing it rather than just doing it because we're used to, you know, like producing something. But I also want to open that to any of the study team members.
Julian, you want to take this?
No, I'm gonna punt.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I mean, it depends on how the team members feel about it, but I think it's probable like it could be a combination of the two, you know, like having some sort of goals if, you know, if the team members collectively decide that that would help with motivation, I think that's something that could be decided, amongst a team. But I don't really have a strong preference for, one particular approach.
I'm curious if
Wow.
it would be helpful to have a deliverable, and I hate saying that word, but something that's much more personal. So maybe people can choose their own creative project that's involved in the or along the line of the studying. Maybe it's a journaling exercise. Maybe if it's a community land trust, they actually need to like find a parcel, crunch the numbers using like data that you can find online, like with, city of Boston, whatever, and like see what it would actually cost to build a structure. And like maybe that's just an exercise that they feel curious to do. And then there could be a presentation, either just through that study team or through a larger Ujima network of those things, should people deem that they want to publicly talk about them. So maybe that's a nice in between.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. In fact, in one of the sessions we did try to make it as interesting as possible. So the topic of our discussion was a particular detail, like probably like a 200, like, I don't know, a 150 page case study on a particular community land trust that is in Boston. And that study was conducted by, Tufts University students. And I think, that made it interesting, at least for me, to prepare for that, because it was on a specific thing that was so close by. And yeah, I think that's a good point. And, we can be more creative in finding ways to make it more, close and real, so that it's something that seems more worthwhile to work on.
Thanks y'all so much. This has been a really fruitful space of reflection. And I just can't thank y'all enough for offering all the thoughts and ideas on just how we can, do a better job of organizing together. So I think it's good for us to take time to like pause and do this together. So thank you again. But at this time, I'm going to stop the recording. So yeah.